On October 27, 2025, the Belgian Minister of Defense made an explosive statement. He said, "If Russia attacks Brussels, we will wipe Moscow off the face of the earth." And Russia's response did not take long to appear. They tested a weapon that, if it works as they claim, can reach any city on the planet in less than a day, without any defense system being able to intercept it. This just seems like another exchange of barbs in this troubled scenario, but the reality is different. The truth is that something has changed behind the scenes, something that most people haven't noticed. And when you understand what triggered this exchange of threats and why it happened right now, you'll realize that this story is much more worrying than any headline is telling. Let's start with the obvious. Del Franken, the Belgian minister, said this in an interview with the newspaper De Morgen. The interviewer asked if he feared that Putin would launch a missile at Brussels. Franken answered bluntly, "No, because Brussels is the heart of NATO," and the response would be total. Shortly after, the Russian embassy responded, saying that this was absolute insanity. Western media focused on the diplomatic scandal, but 48 hours later, something much more serious happened. One day before Franken's interview, on October 26th, Russia announced that it had successfully tested a weapon called Burevestnik. The Russians say the Burevestnik is unlike any previous weapon. According to them, it is powered by nuclear energy and would be the world's first cruise missile with a nuclear engine. According to Russia, in the last test, it flew for 15 hours, covered 8,700 kilometers, and still had enough power to keep going. If that's true, it could circle the planet several times and then descend without warning to strike almost anywhere. But there's a problem. Western experts call this weapon a flying Chernobyl. And the reason is simple. During the tests, this missile apparently spread radiation. The nuclear engine isn't perfectly sealed. Jeffrey Lewis, a respected expert in nuclear weapons, said that this is a science fiction weapon, and several analysts have serious doubts about whether these capabilities are real or exaggerated. 3 days after Franken's interview on October 29th came the second announcement. Putin said that Russia had successfully tested the Poseidon. According to them, this is an autonomous underwater drone powered by nuclear energy, capable of carrying a nuclear bomb. Putin stated that the Poseidon can move at depths and speeds that are impossible to intercept, and that there is nothing comparable in the world. But there's a critical detail. This Poseidon test was not independently verified. No Western source was able to confirm that the test actually happened as described, and several Western observers were quick to express skepticism. An analyst posted, "After last week's humiliation with the big scary weapon that failed, Putin tries again, presenting another superweapon to scare Western politicians." So, here's the first question. Are these weapons really real? And I can say yes. But it's most likely that Russia is exaggerating their capabilities. But even if these weapons don't work exactly as claimed, they still serve a purpose. Russia doesn't actually need to have an invincible Burevestnik or an undetectable Poseidon. It just needs you to believe that it does. Because as long as you believe, you'll hesitate before taking the next step. Experts call this reflexive control. It's a psychological tactic. You manipulate what the enemy thinks, make him believe that you're stronger, crazier, or more unpredictable than you really are.
I'm talking about giving the troops with the avant-garde system or the production of the Burevestnik system. We equip our intercontinental missiles used in our submarines with systems to survive the adversary's anti-aircraft systems. In fact, soon the Sarmat missile, a heavy missile, will be put into service.
And so, you influence their decisions without firing a single shot. And here we come to the second question. And this is the most important one. Why did these tests happen exactly now? Why in October of 2025? The answer is simple. On February 5th, 2026. In just a few months, the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty will expire. The new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty is the last nuclear arms control agreement between the United States and Russia. It limits the number of long-range nuclear bombs each side can have and restricts the systems that can launch them. Without this treaty, for the first time in more than 50 years, there will be no legal restrictions on American and Russian nuclear weapons. And here's what happened in the last few months. In September of 2025, Putin offered to extend new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty for 1 more year. Trump said it sounded like a good idea, but he did nothing, signed nothing, and didn't start any negotiations. And then came the tests. October 26th, the Burevestnik. October 29th, the Poseidon. That same day, Trump announces he will restart American nuclear tests. The United States hasn't conducted full nuclear tests since 1992. So, here's the real game. Putin is using the Burevestnik and the Poseidon as bargaining chips. He's saying, look, the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty only limits our old weapons. These ones here are new. They're not covered by the treaty. If you don't extend the agreement, we're going to produce hundreds of them.
The Burevestnik system has shown capabilities. Its range has reached a record level, something that was noticed by foreign experts. Because in the Burevestnik test zones on October 21st, there was NATO surveillance, a ship. We didn't interfere with their work. We wanted them to take a look at our new weapons.
Trump is responding. If you want to play, so can we. It's a negotiation, an extremely dangerous negotiation, and all this theater is happening because both sides know that in February, the rules disappear. But there's something you need to understand about how Russia operates. This pattern of response isn't new. Russia always does this. Let me show you. In November 2024, a year before these tests, the United States and the United Kingdom authorized Ukraine to use long-range missiles against targets inside Russia. I'm referring to the American Army Tactical Missile System strikes and the British Storm Shadow. On November 19th, Ukraine used these missiles for the first time. They successfully attacked an ammunition depot in Russia's Bryansk region.
Whoa.
2 days later, on November 21st, Russia launched something that no one had seen before, the Oreshnik. The images are out of this world. You see 6 bursts. Each burst has 6 missiles, 36 projectiles coming down from the sky at the same time. at absurd speeds. Russia claims it flies at Mach 10. That's equivalent to 12,000 kilometers per hour. Putin said that even without explosives, the impact generated temperatures of 4,000 degrees Celsius. Just so you know, that's enough to melt metal.
There is currently no countermeasure to this weapon. The missiles strike targets at Mach 10. That's 2.5 to 3 kilometers per hour. Even the most advanced anti-air defense systems in the world, like the anti-air defense systems created by the Americans and Europeans, can't intercept this missile. That's out of the question. I wanted to remind you that it wasn't Russia, but the United States that destroyed the international security system. By fighting to maintain their hegemony, they are leading the world toward global conflict.
But several Western analysts have doubts about these capabilities. Satellite images show holes in the factory roof, but the damage is relatively contained. But Putin was quite clear. He said that Burevestnik was a direct response to the authorization of attacks on Ministry of Emergency Situations. Right after Franken's interview, Russia announced that it was deploying Burevestnik in Belarus. The country is just a few minutes' flight from Brussels. The message couldn't be clearer, and this pattern is even older. On October 8, 2022, Ukraine attacked the Kerch Bridge. This bridge connects Crimea to Russia. It's vital for Russian logistics. 2 days later, Russia responded with 84 cruise missiles and 24 drones in a single day. The target? The entire energy infrastructure of Ukraine. In the following months, Russia fired more than 1,000 missiles and drones. The aim was to leave Ukraine without power in winter. Ukraine attacked a bridge, and Russia destroyed the country's power grid. So, when someone says that Putin does nothing, they're completely wrong. Putin always responds. He just doesn't respond the way we expect. He responds differently. And do you want to know how Russia is managing to produce everything? All these weapons? If we look only at the nominal size, Russia is just the 11th largest in the world, with about $2.1 trillion. But if we look at purchasing power parity, we can see what this money can actually buy within the country. And that's why Russia is considered the 4th largest economy in the world, with $6.9 trillion in real purchasing power. Bigger than Japan, bigger than Germany, and all that capacity is directed toward one thing: war. Factories working 24 hours a day, 3 shifts, old Soviet stockpiles being reactivated, and they're paying a very high price for it. Just so you have an idea, Russia's civilian production is collapsing. Food dropped by 0.2%, textiles fell by 0.3%, and furniture plummeted by 10%. There is a massive labor shortage. Inflation is high, economic growth is flat, and prices keep rising. The truth is that Russia has become a pure war machine, and like any machine running at full capacity, it will eventually break down. NATO, knowing this, has already started to take action. The European Union has increased production 6-fold over the past 2 years. It will reach 2 million per year by the end of 2025. The United States, meanwhile, is rising to 1.2 million combined. That's 3.2 million, almost the same as Russia, but still lower. The truth is that Belgium is not in a position to face Russia militarily, unless NATO enters the war directly. And nobody wants that, because it would mean nuclear war. So, even with all these threats, The only viable strategy for now is economic. Keep sanctioning. Keep cutting off Russia's access to technology. Keep putting pressure on its oil and gas revenues. Break the Russian war machine at its roots. But, as you may have noticed, this takes time. And in the meantime, the tension keeps rising, as we've seen so far. For the first time in more than 50 years, the United States and Russia may enter an era with no limits on their nuclear weapons, no inspections, no verifications, and no rules. The nuclear balance, once maintained by agreements, has become a dangerous public spectacle. Bluffs on top of bluffs. A very dangerous scenario. Because, when no one knows for sure if the other is bluffing, all it takes is a miscalculation, a mistaken interpretation, and suddenly, the bluff becomes reality. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you think these Russian superweapons, the Burevestnik and the Poseidon, really have all these capabilities? Or are they just a big bluff to scare the West? Leave in the comments what you think. If you found this video useful, share it with someone who needs to understand what's really going on. And subscribe to the channel for more analyses like this. See you next time.